A Man of the People by Chinua Achebe. Analysis 1. About the author. Chinua Achebe was born in 1930 in the village of Ogidi in eastern Nigeria. After studying medicine and literature at the University of Ibadan, he went to work for the Nigerian Broadcasting Company in Lagos. Things Fall Apart, his first novel, was published in 1958. Has sold over 8 million copies and has been translated into at least 45 languages. It was followed by No Longer At Ease, then Arrow of God, which won the first New Statesman Joe Campbell Prize, then A Man of the People, a novel dealing with post-independence Nigeria. His most recent, much-praised novel, Tales of the Savannah, Heinemann 1987, was shortlisted for the Booker M.C. Connell Prize in 1987. Achebe has also written short stories and children's books, and Beware Soul Brother, a book of his poetry, won the Commonwealth Poetry Prize in 1972. A collection of essays and literary criticism, Hopes and Impediments, was published by Heinemann in 1988. Achebe has lectured at the universities of Nigeria, Massachusetts, and Connecticut, and among the many honors he has received are the awards of a fellowship of the Modern Language Association of America and 11 honorary doctorates from universities in Britain, the USA, Canada, and Nigeria. He followed Heinrich Böll, the Nobel Prize winner, as the second recipient of the Scottish Arts Council Neil Gaihan Fellowship. In 1987, he was recognized in Nigeria with the Nigerian National Merit Award, the country's highest award for the intellectual achievement. Achebe died March 21st, 2013. Number 2. Summary of chapters. Chapter 1. This chapter starts talking about Chief Nanga, the Honorable MP Nanga at his home village, Anata. The presentation of some parties like People's Organization Party and People's Alliance Party is stated. The Prime Minister has declared the freedom and insisted on betrayal. It was said that in the Daily Chronicles, some ministers have been sacked. For instance, Dr. Makinde, the Minister of Finance, was dismissed. Chief Nanga was widespread all over the country. He called himself the tiger, the lion, the sky, and so on. The setting is in a school where the crowd waited for the arrival of the minister. The proprietor and the principal is Jonathan Nwege. He was thin and wily. Andrew Kadibe is a friend and colleague of the narrator. James is a journalist who has come together with the minister. The stranger, Miss Eleanor John, is present with the minister. She's the princess merchant. In the crowd, we see Eagle Women's Party, Hunters Guild, mothers and children. In some cases, pidgin English is used. The narrator is a teacher whose name is Odile Samaru. He teaches at Anata Grammar School. Chapter 2. It didn't matter what you knew but who you knew. Peter is the houseboy of Odile. Alice is the happy and beautiful lady who newly comes from the nursing school, who now works at Ibori Hospital. Ralph is a medical student who studied in Edinburgh. Els and Odile have been friends and used to sleep together. Chapter 3. Roa is the home village of Odile Samaru. His mother has died. His father used to be a district interpreter. They believed in magic power and traditional medicine. His father, Ezekiel Samaru, has 35 children and five wives. He is also a chairperson of local village people organization party. Simon Koko is the Minister of Overseas Training. Simon Koko thinks that he is poisoned after drinking the traditional coffee. Our homemade stuff, Nescafe, is over. Simon is accustomed to taking European coffee. Odile has gone to the capital to see Chief Nanga. This time, he's at Coco, but the incident stops them from discussing Odile's scholarship. Chapter 4. Odile is at Chief Nanga. Eddie is the firstborn son of Mr. Nanga. Mrs. Nanga plans to take 3 children at the village. Mr. Nanga promises people that he will build the Lord Girigiri Anata. Girigiri is a trading town. Honorable T.C. Kabino is the Minister of Public Construction. The visitors at Mr. Nanga's home talk about progress and political issues. There are American ambassadors, Jean, a woman, and John, a man, at Nanga's home. Chapter 5. Mrs. Akiro Agnes is a beautiful woman at Nanga's home. She's the wife of a lawyer. Jean and John go to dance in international hotel with Odile. Jean embraces Odile family. She calls another Jackson Elsie for Elsie. Elsie and Jean drive through wide streets in the city body. After the journey, Odile still wants Jean. She promises him to come on the following day. Chapter 6. Odile talks about his love with Elsie. There is another American lady called Elsie Jackson. She's a friend of Jean. Mr. Nanga is also a minister of culture. There is the preparation of the exhibition of the Writers' Society. Mr. Jario is the president of the Writers' Society. He has written a novel entitled The Song of the Blackbird. The minister, Odile, and Elsie attend the exhibition. The American ambassadors, Jean and John, are also present. Odile whispers with Elsie when Chief Nanga speaks. Odile looks around and around to criticize and to appreciate the people who are here in the book exhibition. Chapter 7. Chief Nanga is very appreciated at the exhibition. Mr. Jario and the editor of Daily Market congratulate him upon his speech and ask for its copy. Chief Nanga criticizes the freedom of press and gives a £5 note to the editor so as to make him silent. Elsie and Odile are taken at Chief Nanga's home. They share dinner. Because Chief Nanga wants to sleep with Elsie, Odile has a close look so as to see what is going to happen later. Chief Nanga forcefully sleeps with Elsie. She calls Odile to save her from her ravisher. Odile goes upstairs but misses what to do. He comes back. Later, he packs his things. Mrs. Nanga has gone to Anata with the children in the Christmas holidays. As the dawn comes, Odile is out in Bori streets. Mr. Nanga calls him, but Odile is very disappointed. Chief Nanga gives excuses to Odile and convinces him that he can find him even 6 girls if he wants a girl to sleep with. Odile takes a taxi and goes to see Max Kuramo, who used to be the poet laureate of their school when they were in university. This moment, he's a lawyer. They talk about the issue and finally Odile feels relaxed and at ease. Chapter 8. When Max Kuramo has left for court, Odile starts to cool down, heat and anger, but still wonders what has taken place. Odile is thinking of a new political party because Chief Nanga's politics is not fair. Eunice, Eunice was the girlfriend of Max Kuramo. They met at London School of Economics. There are other people at Max's home. Odile proposed the Common People's Convention for professional men and women. There is another European who comments on their views about politics. There is stagnation and corruption in the country. In this chapter, we also see the allusion to the Bible's Rachel's Lamentations. It alludes to poor black mothers in shame and neglect, but with hope in their sons. Odile and Max decide to open a new party with new philosophy. Chapter 9. Odile's return to Anata on 23rd December. Azoge is a blind beggar. Villagers greet Odile warmly. Josiah steals Azoge's stick to use in making juju. Edina is intended wife to Chief Nanga. Her father is Odo, the big man with an enormous, shining stomach, bloodshot with graying hair. Odo's wife has been in hospital for 3 weeks. Edina is described as a very beautiful girl. Odile takes Edina to hospital to see her mother. In their way, the bicycle crashes, but the accident is not very serious. The food lies on the road and it showed how much the family is poor. Odile helps Edina to buy bread and corned beef. Odile tells Edina not to marry Chief Nanga because he thinks that the marriage between that old man and Edna cannot be fair. Chapter 10. After the bicycle accident, Odile misses what to say to Edna. He goes in holidays for Christmas at Mr. Nanga. At Nanga's is a drunkard who says that he's a brother of Nanga. When Odile is taken in the upper room by Mrs. Nanga, Edina joins them. Odile tells Edina not to marry the ancient polygamist. He has paid for her to correct reason why she does not intend to let him down. We also experience the Minister of Foreign Trade, Alhaj Chief Senator Sulaiman Wagada. He and Mr. Nanga are claimed to have corrupted the country in imperfect duties. The country is on the verge of chaos. Elections are going to be fire and death. The time will be full of violence. Odile calls for the launch of Common People's Convention. Odile has a brand new Volkswagen car. Odile started the campaign. He returns to Anata. Edina is also back to Anata, and she's described as a beautiful girl with perfect breasts. When Odile goes at Odo's home, Edina's father is against him. Odo tries to advise Odile. Chapter 11. Odile thinks of different issues to deal with his revenge about political position of Nanga and the girl Elsie. Odile receives a letter from Edina asking for forgiveness because although her father misbehaved towards Odile. She also thanks him for his advice about marriage. She wrote, "For yesterday is but a dream and tomorrow is only a vision, but today's friendship makes every yesterday a dream of happiness and tomorrow a vision of hope." Odile has 4 bodyguards. The leader is Boniface, who is paid £10 a month. Nanga's youth vanguards, or Nanga Venger were set to annihilate all enemies of progress and protect true Nangaism. Nanga pays a visit to Odil's father. During the campaign, people know that Max Kuramo is against Chief Koko and Odile Samaru is against Chief Nanga. When Mr. Nanga is at Odile's home, he tries to give him £250 and a promise of a scholarship. Chief Nanga wants him to change his mind about elections. Odile's father wants the offer, but Odile dryly refuses the offer. Chapter 12. The father of Odile tries to make him understand that it is necessary to accept Chief Nanga's offer. The campaign continues. There is a story of a policeman who is imprisoned to pass 2 years in jail because he has taken bribes from a lorry driver. Corruption and swindling in the country are revealed. Max Kuramo says that Chief Koko wanted to give him £1,000 to give up the idea of election campaigns. The campaign of elections continues to Abaga. When Odile arrives at Odo's, Edina's brother is reading The Sorrows of Satan. Edina comes and gets at Odile. She tells him that she will be married to Chief Nanga. She does not want Odile at her home. Mr. Ezekiel Samaru is dismissed from his position. People consider him as an anti-party activist. The local tax assessment officer and the 3 policemen come to arrest Ezekiel Samaru and his business is under control. Chapter 13. Some criers for communal labor are now calling for the full support of Nanga in Urua. Odile decides to go to Chief Nanga's inaugural campaign meeting and goes there. When the MC Master of Ceremony is introducing Mr. Nanga, Nanga and the crowd threaten Odile. Nanga accuses him of wanting to take his position. He tries to describe Odile's poor background so as to undermine his dignity. Mr. Nanga and Odile fight on the platform. As a result, Odile is seriously hurt and taken to hospital. His car is set on fire. He is arrested for having illegal weapons in his car, which is a lie. After this, Odile asks the doctor about elections day and the nomination paper. The day is, in fact, the election day. Max Kuramo has been killed in Abaga by Chief Koko's fans. Eunice, his girlfriend, has fired 2 bullets into Chief Koko's chest. He died on the spot. Chief Koko's wife is made the Minister of Women's Affairs. Before Odile leaves the hospital, Edina comes to visit him. They talk about what has taken place. Mr. Nanga's wife, the letter, and the future plans are under discussion. They revive their friendship. Families begin conversations. They hear that Mr. Nanga is arrested when he is trying to escape by a canoe dressed as a fisherman. Max is called a hero of the revolution. Chief Koko is called a thief and a murderer. All people enjoy the overthrow of the old regime. The coup was led by armed thugs after elections. Number 3. Themes in A Man of the People by Chinua Achebe. There are different themes in A Man of the People, by Chinua Achebe. Corruption, education, gender, and marginalization of women, etc., among others. 1. Corruption. Corruption is shown in different parts of this novel. Chief Nanga's behavior and activities prove that he has self-interest. Chief Nanga promises Odile a scholarship to continue his studies. This is a form of corruption because Odile has not passed an examination. Chief Nanga is a leader who promises but fails to achieve goals. He brings 10 buses for himself and tells people that he's going to build the road Girigiri Anata. Chief Nanga fails to supply water in the neighboring village of Anata. The people have only got water pipes. Chief Nanga is corrupt. He gives a 5 pound to the journalist in order to influence him. He wants a good report about his speech. Chief Nanga has fear of the public after book exhibition, so he makes the journalist silent. Chief Nanga has paid a visit to Ezekiel Samaru to convince Odile to stop election campaigns. He gives 250 pounds. Even if they refuse the offer, this is a clear example of corruption. Chief Nanga gives 150 pounds to Odo Edina's father in order to influence him. He paid Edina's school fees in a college because he wants to marry her later. He does this as corrupt dowry that we can consider as corruption. Chief Koko gives Max Kuramo 1,000 pounds to stop his election campaign. We have also seen that it didn't matter what you knew, but who you knew. Eventually, the novel ends when Chief Nanga tries to escape because he's afraid of justice. He knows well that after the coup, he will be taken to court. 2. Education. The story in the novel A Man of the People by Chinua Achebe starts in Anata Grammar School. In this setting, both teachers and pupils are preparing to receive the minister, Chief Nanga. He comes to visit the school where he once taught. Odile, the narrator of the story, is one of the teachers at Anata Grammar School. He is a former pupil of Chief Nanga in Standard 3. We find that education is given more value. Odile becomes so glad after getting the promise of a scholarship. He sees that as a chance to reach his personal goals. Both Elsie and Laf studied in a medical school in Edinburgh. The children of Chief Nanga are educated and study in good schools owned by white people. Jean and John, who are ambassadors from America, are educated. In fact, Mr. Jario is a typical example of how education has an influence on the life of the country. He is educated and represents the Writers' Society. Mr. Jario is a writer of the Song of the Blackbird. Finally, there are many examples that prove the importance of education in this novel. Max Kuramo and Odile hope that education is able to change the bad governance in the country. This is why they found CPC, Common People's Convention, so as to participate in the coming elections in the country. Number 3. Gender and marginalization of women. There are different proofs that show us that women have a poor status in the novel A Man of the People. Edis's Rape by Chief Nanga exemplifies the poor consideration of women in Africa. African society portrays women in general as foolish, weak, dependent, and seductive. It legitimizes men to exercise their power over women to sustain the latter's subordination and marginality. Odile's inaction is also an example that has no parallel. In other literature, characters such as Edna, Elsie, and Mrs. Nanga, indicate the marginalized status of women in African society. As a form of personal revenge, Odile decides to seduce Nanga's fiancée, Edna. As a form of political revenge, Odile works with his friend Max Kuramo to found a new party, CP's Common People's Convention. Despite her education, Edna acts as a traditional Igbo woman who has to obey her father at all costs. It takes a great deal of pressure to make her act according to her feelings and own needs instead of mechanically obey men. Mrs. Nanga is completely traditional, mostly uneducated. It is obvious, thus, that the issue of female education is closely related with the roles women can fulfill in the society depicted by the novel. In other aspects of life, women are inferior to men and have to act accordingly: cook, look after the children, accept new wives, and obey their husbands. Number 4. Characters and characterization. A. Odile. This is the protagonist and the narrator of the story. He is the son of a moderately prosperous district interpreter who, after retirement, is struggling financially due to having several wives and children and a limited pension. When we first encounter Odile, he is a school teacher, but over the course of the novel, he eventually becomes a politician. Initially, he is a young man whose only political ambition to be a teacher, and while he is seduced by Chief Nanga's promise of wealth, he eventually turns against Chief Nanga, realizing that Nanga is corrupt and not at all as just as he pretends to be. Finally, towards the end of the novel, Odile raises his own political party in opposition of Chief Nanga so that he can combat the corruption that is destroying his country's newfound government. B. Chief Nanga. Chief Nanga, this is the antagonist of the novel. He is a powerful and corrupt politician who has succeeded as a classic big man by bribery, patronage, and personal connections. He becomes the Minister of Culture after his country gains independence from the white rulers. As Minister of Culture, it is Nanga's duty to protect his country's traditions and culture, being called the man of the people. However, preferring to use his political stature for self-serving reasons, Chief Nanga uses his wealth to bribe others and use his political power to intimidate others. He initially offers to use his influence to help Odile and appeals benevolent, but as the novel develops, we see that his power has a darker side, including the use of violent intimidations. He eventually loses power as a result of a military coup. C. Chief Koko. He is the Minister of Overseas Training and a friend of Chief Nanga. He initially is shown as someone who can help Odile obtain his entrance to a postgraduate in London. He is also removed from his position in the coup. At the end of the novel, he is described as fat and jovial. D. Edna Odo. She is originally the girlfriend of Chief Nanga, whom he has trained at women's college, but Odile decides to seduce her. He is initially unsuccessful but persists, and by the end of the novel, they are planning to get married. Maxwell Kuramo. He is a successful lawyer and friend of Odile. He is described as mature and thoughtful and is active in politics. He is killed towards the end of the novel. Mrs. Nanga, this character, is the progressive woman of the Minister of Culture. Ezekiel Samaru, this character, is a retired district interpreter in Urua. The position has made this character very wealthy and widely hated. Mrs. Agnes Akira, a sophisticated solicitor. This person arrives at the Minister of Culture's home the night that his wife leaves for Christmas vacation. Elsie, a girl who studied in England, she's now a nurse in Borytown. She's a friend of Odile. Chief Nanga rapes her when she has come to visit Odile at Chief Nanga's home. Jonathan Nwege is the owner and the principal of Anata Grammar School. He's wiry. Eunice, she's a girlfriend of Maxwell Kuramo. At the end of the novel, she kills Chief Coco as she avenges for her boyfriend Maxwell Kuramo. Azoge, his character is a blind beggar in Anata whose old stick is replaced with a new one. Boniface, his character is the chief bodyguard for a member of CP's Common People's Convention, Odile Samaru. Mr. Jario, this character is the president of the Writers' Society. We see him during book exhibition. Jean and John, these are American ambassadors that are friendly to Chief Nanga. We may have more characters, but we only listed the above characters. Thank you for being with us.